When you look at Puka Nakua's dynasty graph on Keep Trade Cut, the man wasn't even on Keep Trade Cut until mid-May after he was drafted. He went up to about 1,000, and then all of a sudden we have Puka Nakua, who is one of the hottest stories in all football and in dynasty, now valued as the wide receiver 19 on Keep Trade Cut. So the question that you probably have for us as your local dynasty channel is, what should we be doing with Puka Nakua? Puka Nakua, obviously, you know the story. He had 30 targets in his first 2 games. Last week he came out and he had 7 additional targets, but slowed down from a production standpoint. Now, a lot of people are wondering if they should sell high on Puka Nakua, especially after they saw last week that he can come back down to earth and have 12 fantasy points, which if that's a down week for Puka Nakua, it does raise the question, should you actually be selling him? Again, he's valued right now at the wide receiver 19 on Keep Trade Cut. What are you doing with Puka Nakua at the moment in dynasty leagues?
So I have a few shares of Puka Nakua in my dynasty leagues. In a couple of them, I'll be looking to sell him probably in the near future. And 1 or 2 of them, I will probably hold him. And me personally, we've gotten a lot of questions about, obviously, I don't think anyone's going to have the perfect answer with what Puka Nakua's workload is going to look like for when Cooper Kupp comes back and beyond after this season. We really don't know. What I can tell you is that Puka Nakua right now is going for what we've seen as high as 24 firsts and seconds. And as crazy as it sounds, because we always preach to what do we always preach?
Keep your head above the waves?
Yes, keep your head above waves, but also small market value wins are what result in you winning in dynasty.
Yeah, okay. Which one are you talking about?
I was testing you.
Okay, I was like,
but we always preach. We always say be careful. And when you end up market value positive on a guy that has very little draft capital, you tend to ship them off. And I even said that in one of the videos. I said, if Puka Nakua hits, you know what's going to happen with Puka Nakua on my roster? See you, buddy. He's going to be gone. Well, now, after 20 targets in a single game and having more targets than any other rookie in the history of the NFL for his first 3 games, I'm holding Puka in some of those. And I am actually, when people ask me how much he's worth in leagues, I'm saying 2 firsts. And I think that's reflected in his value right now in Keep Trade Cut at wide receiver 19. And I think it'll continue on, and I think it'll continue to go up because of his workload and because of the questions surrounding Cooper Kupp. It's crazy to say, but I think even if you're selling Puka Nakua right now for a 24 first, and we could look stupid for this in the future, but I think there's risk that you may even lose out on some value if you already sold him, because of his production and because of what he's been able to do in McVay's offense. So that's kind of my stance on it. There's a lot to unravel here, and we will cover this in future videos as well, I'm sure, but that's kind of what we're doing with Puka Nakua right now, kind of leaning on the hold side, I guess, for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm mostly holding Puka. I mean, looking at the value adjacent players for Puka right now, I'm probably not paying Kyler Murray for Puka Nakua. I'm probably not paying Deebo Samuel for Puka Nakua. But, I mean, considering that he's done what he's done through the first couple games, we're comfortable holding him. Kyron, what do you think of that?
That makes me want to die.
Kyron Williams, it was showing one of my trades. Kyron Williams is also somebody who's jumped up a ton. He is currently the RB18 on Keep Trade Cut. Same offense. Cam Akers was nothing. We told you, ring the gong. Cam Akers is bad. He always was. He's not going to get the team investment he needs to be a starting running back in the NFL. That was our stance from day one. It continues to be our stance. Kyron Williams is the guy that steps in, though. And this did surprise us a little bit because we knew Kyron Williams was pretty good as a pass catcher, but he's undersized for an NFL back. And what he's done through the first 3 games, performing as an RB1 from a scoring perspective, is surprising. Right now in Dynasty, again, valued at the RB18, I think I am going to hold Kyron Williams as well. I think Kyron Williams is not going for a first right now. I think the maximum amount people are going to pay for Kyron are 2 seconds. I think you're seeing Kyron placed in a lot of deals for bigger assets, and I'm fine using Kyron Williams as a throw-in right now, actually. I'm fine, if you're using Kyron Williams to get to one of those top 2 or 3 round level assets. That's okay with me. But for straight up draft capital selling or just selling him high to sell him high, I'm not actually sure it's worth it. I mean, he's actually looked fairly good, and it's not like he's a top 12 dynasty running back like Devon Achane is after 1 game.
Here's what I will say. If you're getting a 24 first for him,
you're selling him.
Please do it.
There's your advice. Yeah, 24 first is a no-brainer, but I just don't think people are paying that. Yep. And moving down the list, like I said, Devon Achane. Devon Achane is what on Keep Trade Cut?
The running back 11. after scoring 52 points from 4 touchdowns in a game where Jalen Waddle was not there, and the Dolphins scored 70 points.
Let's get something out of the way. We are not A-Chain believers. Last week didn't super change our mind. I mean, he looked great.
He looked good.
He looked great. He had a great game.
Yeah.
All of that can be true. Is it possible we were wrong about
Absolutely.
A-Chain? It is absolutely possible. We're not going to say that after 1 week. I'd love to see what A-Chain does after 3 weeks. I will say this. If you are selling him as a top 12 Dynasty running back, surely you are doing that. Because that is a crazy price.
So I've seen some deals where Devon A-Chain is going straight up for Breece Hall. And I'm without question taking Breece Hall there. I don't know why you would ever consider it. The Miami Dolphins offense is explosive. They score a lot of points. They're not going to score 70 again, obviously. And I don't think anyone, even the people that are fans of Devon A-Chain, would say that he's going to score 52 again or anytime soon. Definitely not consistently. My issue is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are there. And yes, they don't play running back. But it took a Jalen Waddle injury for A-Chain and Mostert to do what they did because they're not normally the focal point in the offense.
Yes.
So that's just my opinion on it from a fantasy perspective. I mean, from a landing spot perspective, we said this when he was drafted. We were like, man, of all the places for him to land, this was the perfect place for him to land. And we don't believe that in him from a fantasy perspective. But as a weapon in the NFL for the Dolphins, he's great. And he proved that this week. One game.
I did skip one person on the Rams if you want to talk about
TTU Atwell. And TTU Atwell is going to be that other receiver who I personally believe he's only risen to wide receiver 48, but that is a massive jump considering where he was coming from before, where he was irrelevant. He was beginning to not even be rostered in some dynasty leagues. At best, he was a junk throw-in in trades. And with Tutu Atwell, a wide receiver 48, I think he's a fine hold. I think he's a fine contending asset. He's still only 24 years old in the third season of his NFL career. Me personally, I really think once Cooper Kupp comes back, and there's a lot of questions again surrounding Cooper Kupp, I think Tutu Atwell will be the guy that's sort of phased out from his consistent target volume, and it'll be Puka and Kupp, because you have seen in the Rams offense since McVay has been the coach there that there can be multiple wide receivers producing at a high level. See Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks when he was there, all the different combinations of those guys when they were healthy were producing at a high level. But I don't think it'll be Tutu and Kupp. It'll probably be Kupp and Puka.
All right, so some hypotheticals for you. Tutu Atwell or a 24-second?
I would probably take the second.
Tutu Atwell or Kendre Miller?
Probably Tutu.
I would take Kendre Miller. Josh Downs or Tutu?
Downs by far.
Tyler Lockett or Tutu?
Now the second could be a late second because I don't think any non-contenders are buying Tutu Atwell.
Sure, exactly.
So maybe I may actually lean Tutu until you see what he can do for the rest of the season.
Treylon Burks or Tutu Atwell?
Oh my gosh. Is it that close?
Yeah, 45 and 48 wide receiver.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, you take the next guy.
Yep. Next guy here is going to be Tua Tagovailoa. And this is a guy that we've been talking about all offseason, really saying, I mean, at his price, he's one of the better values at the quarterback position because while there were a lot of question marks surrounding his health and his ability to stay on the field consistently and even have a long, successful career because of his head injuries, well, he goes into this year and he absolutely balls out. QB3, I think, through the first 3 games of the season. And I mean, when you're throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you're going to put up points. And honestly, watching Tua Tagovailoa this year, he seems to even have more of a command of that offense and is incredibly accurate. I mean, he's done some very, very, very like top 12 level quarterback stuff already at the beginning of the season. I think he looks by far and away better than he did last year.
So as it sits right now, Tua Tagovailoa would be a first-round startup pick in Dynasty Superflex leagues.
QB7?
At QB7
Okay.
and the 11th overall player on Keep Trade Cut. So are you taking Tua or Anthony Richardson?
I'll take AR.
Are you taking Trevor Lawrence or Tua?
I think it's way closer than it was originally perceived.
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point, with consistency and the fact that he just has straight up better weapons, I would I would lean Tua.
All right, let's talk about the rookie wide receivers now for a minute. Let's talk about Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison, we've talked about this off camera, was the easiest rookie wide receiver production call we ever had. It was very obvious he was going to produce from day one. We could ring the gong for that. But he has jumped to wide receiver, as high as wide receiver 13, and
Nice.
he recently dropped back down to wide receiver 17, which is where he was valued all offseason. So it seems to me like the market has adjusted in terms of the wide receiver positioning. However, when you're looking at the overall rank, which I think I can toggle to overall rank, he's still much higher than he was. He's valued as the 38th overall player on Keep Trade Cut, next to guys like T. Higgins, Jordan Love, who has also jumped up, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, TJ Hawkinson, and a mid-24 first.
And this was a conversation that we had before this video. I said, do you prefer Jordan Addison or T. Higgins in Dynasty with the recent happenings that we've had in the NFL and with fantasy? And I think we both still landed on T. Higgins, but it is way closer than it was ever perceived to be this offseason. And I think deservedly so, because Addison is in such a great situation where he's really benefiting playing alongside Justin Jefferson as a true wide receiver too. And no one can admit yet that T. Higgins is a wide receiver too. And I think this is shown already in the first couple of weeks. He has some big weeks. He has some really bad weeks as well. And I mean, 8 targets, 0 receptions, 8 targets, 2 receptions. Like in a couple of the games, he just hasn't played very well. And I think you still ultimately want to take Higgins because of his value insulation and the fact that he may not be with Cincinnati. He may be the alpha in the future, but it is, again, way closer than we ever thought it would be.
And then Zay Flowers is going to be the other guy. Obviously, Zay has been getting the majority of the targets of any weapon in that offense. And to us, this is not surprising. Zay Flowers is the wide receiver 13. And to me, I'm going to start by saying I think this is a little bit steep. When you're looking at the guy, if you can down tier from Zay Flowers to T. Higgins, plus if you can do Zay Flowers, I mean, you're looking at the guys he's valued next to, Stephon Diggs, Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf, I probably wouldn't do, but Devontae Adams is down there for a contending move. I mean, there are a lot of guys in this range that I would probably prefer over Zay Flowers. Yes, I think Zay Flowers is great. However, I do not think that Zay Flowers is going to be like an alpha 1 in the NFL.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's really hard to navigate dynasty rankings in the middle of the season because so much of it is really purely dependent on points and immediate production. A lot of these rankings will even themselves out. They'll start to regulate as the season progresses, as we get closer to the end of the year, and then we'll get really a good grasp on the ultimate value of a lot of these guys. We're just saying what we're seeing. This isn't the ultimate say on any of these guys. This isn't our ultimate verdict or anything. These are just observations that we've made. These guys that are increasing in value significantly because of the first 3 weeks of the season where they've been producing very well. And another guy that's been a product of that production is Tank Dell on the Houston Texans, a guy that we never saw coming. Honestly, we liked him in college. I do remember us watching film on him. We're like, this guy is pretty explosive, pretty shifty. He is a decent route runner and can do everything, but his size is just not enough for us to be sold on him at all in the NFL, especially on an offense that's incredibly questionable with a rookie quarterback. And then CJ Stroud goes out there, throws the ball 45, 50 times a game, and Tank Dell is getting a ridiculous amount of that volume. He's now all the way up to wide receiver 33 right now, and I think this is an appropriate price, honestly, with him and his production. Could this be recency bias? Absolutely. But for Dynasty and how Tank Dell could develop and how he could benefit from even more weapons implemented into that offense as the years go on, I think you're looking at a pretty solid, pretty consistent fantasy asset from here on out. Maybe if not this season, in seasons to come.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud is right there with him. I'm literally about to smack the crap out of that gong right now because I loved CJ Stroud, and he is awesome. When he came out of the draft in April, he was being valued as like the number 16th, 17th, 18th overall player in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And then out of nowhere, for no reason, before as recently as September 15th, he was the 48th valued player. I mean, he dropped 30 spots for no reason. He is all the way back up to 22nd now. He's the QB 10. He's right behind Trevor Lawrence and right above Jordan Love, Bryce Young, and Brock Purdy. CJ Stroud's a baller. If you have CJ Stroud, do not sell him right now. That's all. That is all that needs to be said about Stroud.
Yeah, and flying through these last guys.
Flying through those words.
Yep. Jordan Love, also a guy that's been on the rise. QB 11. He's had a great start to the year. Starting as a QB 1 the first 3 weeks of the season, has kind of a down week, back to earth against the Lions on Thursday night, but really good signs from him. Yeah, his completion percentage was low, but anyone who doesn't box score read Reed knows that completion percentage isn't everything, and the fact that he's able to push the ball down the field to his weapons, and he's not. The Packers aren't winning in spite of him. They are winning because of him. A lot of promise with him in the future. We're excited about what this next generation of Green Bay Packers teams is going to look like with him.
Brandon Aiyuk is a perfect example of how dynasty graphs during the season just pretty much mirror how their production is going as the season goes on.
Yeah.
He started as the wide receiver 23. As soon as he had that big game, he's up to the wide receiver 13, and then dropped down back to the wide receiver 18. And then for some reason, the last 3 days has jumped back up to the wide receiver 12 in Dynasty. His value's all over the place. I wouldn't really necessarily be looking to move Brandon Aiyuk yet. We haven't learned anything about Aiyuk. I mean, he had the big game. We knew he could have big games. He's also been out the last 2 weeks. The consistency was always the biggest issue. So right now, we're probably going to be holding Brandon Aiyuk.
Yep. And Sam Laporta is definitely not a guy that we're selling at all. He was a guy that Avery specifically was a big fan of this offseason, and it showed immediately. I had my questions about how he would fit in that offense from a consistency perspective in fantasy, but it really seems like he's a go-to guy next to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and in tight end premium leagues especially. I mean, I think it's really hard to argue against Laporta being pretty much objectively a top 6 tight end in Dynasty at this point. Yes, maybe even surpassing Kyle Pitts. Right now on Keep Trade Cut, he's tight end 3. That is still a little bit rich for me right now because the dust has to settle. We got to see what Andrews does. We got to see what Hawk does, Kittle, and how Kelsey progresses and continues his amazing career. But really, really excited for Laporta's value. And if you invested in him cheap, it paid off already.
Before the season, Roshan Johnson was the RB40. He's all the way up to the running back 24. Right now, Roshan Johnson hasn't really done a ton from a production standpoint besides in week 1, where, again, a lot of that was in garbage time, and I think a lot of people aren't realizing that, but we have been Roshan truthers. If you will remember, for a very long time, we made an entire video dedicated to buying him in Dynasty Fantasy Football. His production, 17.5 points, 6 points, and 7 points in the last 3 weeks, but his snap share has gone up to almost 50%. Are you buying Roshan at this price still? He is being valued around guys like Dameon Pierce, Aaron Jones, Rashad White, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Pacheco, and Miles Sanders.
I mean, that's worth about a second. Yeah.
So are you holding, buying, or selling?
I'm holding if I own him.
I'm holding, and honestly, I would still kind of buy at this price. So.
Yep. Jaden Reed is going to be our next guy, someone who since post-draft, since his landing spot, and really when he was being shorted, we were big fans of, and he has made his name known in Green Bay, again, right off the bat. And a lot of this was due to Christian Watson being injured the first few weeks, but he's still producing now that Christian Watson is back. Really excited to see how he finishes out this season, how he continues this season, and he's going to continue to go up in value in Dynasty as well. I think he has a lot of upside.
Jerome Ford is the next guy on this list. He is currently the RB34. He jumped as high as RB24 before he went kind of plummeting back down as Kareem Hunt was signed to that team. Jerome Ford, if this is somebody you can sell right now, you do it. I literally, as we were sitting here on this video, I traded Jerome Ford and a 25 third for Treylon Burks. Okay? So people will value Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford for me is a hard sell right now in Dynasty leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacoby Myers is a guy that we're still kind of uncertain about because of the situation, but you can't deny his production, can't deny his talent. Up to wide receiver 46 at this point. I mean, he's looking like a bona fide wide receiver too. Again, a lot of football left, a lot to be ironed out, but good promise from him for sure.
If you have to pay a second to get Jacoby Myers,
it's probably worth it.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm kind of in love with Jacoby Myers right now. Like, he's actually turning into a my guy buy in Dynasty right now. Like, I think I'm going to go buy him in a lot of places. I really do believe in the receiver he is.
Especially as a contender.
He's getting all of that concentrated volume between him and Devontae Adams. I think he is a fantastic value for contending Dynasty teams because he not only has value this year for your contending team, he is on a contract that he just signed. He is a good receiver. He is going to be used. I love Jacoby Myers right now. Those are some of the top risers this season so
15.
Far there was a lot of them. But those are the top guys so far in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Let us know what you think of these guys. If you have any other different opinions, let's talk about it in the comments. But do us a huge favor. Make sure you drop a like on this video. And if you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Dynasty season is going to start picking up in full swing right now. We're going to have videos every week from here on out. We're going to have multiple videos a week starting late October, and then like 5 videos a week in November, December. So you're going to want to join the Dynasty train as we get back into this. So like I said, make sure you're subscribed. Head over to flockfantasy.com/domain for our full Dynasty rankings, for a team blueprint or a team podcast of your Dynasty team, among all kinds of other features that you get there. Like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain for 30% off. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We will see you later.